I'm back after taking a healthy amount of time to play through Endwalker and experience everything the tank role has to offer. Warrior was not my first main back in A Realm Reborn, but it has been the job that I stuck with through every expansion since. Warrior also marked the beginning of this channel as a place for me to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. With all the community discussion around the realities of playing a warrior in Endwalker and the 6.1 updates, I thought it only fair to share my feelings on the job now that I've had an opportunity to play it in dungeons, trials, and max level content. Many warrior mains will remember transitioning from Stormblood to Shadowbringers and feeling lost without much of the self-healing afforded us by the old Inner Beast and Steel Cyclone. Any content below level 76 felt infinitely worse in the beginning due to losing the healing component from our tank stance skills. With Nascent Flash's healing being given to raw intuition, low-level content feels incredible on Warrior. It truly feels like a return to form. Then Warrior got Bloodwetting, and everyone collectively lost their minds. I love Bloodwetting as an ability, but I don't think it is broken nonsense. As I stated previously, self-healing was a staple of old Warrior gameplay, and many of the Endwalker changes moved Warrior back into that space. In that sense, I would congratulate Square Enix on a brilliant job well done. Is the self-healing overtuned? Maybe for dungeon play, but I've never known the game to be balanced around community perceptions of light party content. If Warrior does receive any future adjustments, I don't believe they will be heavy-handed nerfs. With all the talk regarding Bloodwetting, it's easy to forget that Nascent Flash also receives similar effects. Previously only useful for self-healing after a hit, I'm increasingly finding myself using it to preemptively on party members to save a healer or help with tank busters. It's a welcome addition to my party utility and reinforces the not on my watch aspects of tanking that I love so much. When I'm firing on all cylinders, I feel invincible on Warrior. Partner me with a Scholar and I feel borderline unkillable. By properly rotating cooldowns and making use of Bloodwetting and Nascent Flash, I scratch an itch I thought only possible on Paladin. I truly feel that my faith in Warrior has been rewarded with Endwalker's defensive changes. The changes to Inner Release have also been a clear success in my mind. Warrior feels much more flexible in its damage rotation now, and the extra breathing room is a welcome change from the stress that was Shadowbringers Inner Release. The 6.1 changes to Inner Release continue that trend by restricting Inner Release stacks to only be usable by Fellcleave or Decimate. This means we can finish combos to keep our Surging Tempests going without desyncing Inner Release. We can Tomahawk if we need to back off for a GCD. Most importantly, Warrior now treats stacks of Inner Chaos differently than Inner Release, meaning we can keep Infuriate on cooldown without worrying about losing Inner Release stacks. We still have to manage Beast Gauge gain from Infuriate, but now we always get the full benefit of both cooldowns. The changes to Inner Release and the addition of Primal Rend really lend weight to Warrior burst phases that keeps me coming back to the job. Primal Rend looks a little silly and didn't seem too impressive on paper, but I can't imagine Warrior without it now. I would argue that Warrior is truly the king of mobility in the tank role now that Onslaught doesn't consume Beast Gauge, we have 3 stacks of it, and we have Primal Rend as a phenomenal gap closer. Seeing a warrior leap into the air and clear half the battlefield while spinning is quite the spectacle, and very useful to close the gap for some mechanics. A word of caution, however, that the animation lock for Primal Rend is rather long. This has prevented me from properly stacking with a party on a few occasions. The 30-second buff timer for it, however, means that you can easily avoid the animation lock with some smart planning. Excel spreadsheet aficionados claim that Warrior is sitting pretty low on the DPS charts compared to Dark Knight and Gunbreaker. Warrior mains are used to this by now, having spent the entirety of Shadowbringers below Paladin and Gunbreaker. That said, every tank appears to be within a very small range of one another, and the role at large seems very well balanced. This would be the most compelling case I have for Warrior to not receive any future nerfs, as the self-healing appears to be an intentional trade-off in exchange for lower damage output. Warrior's damage may improve more than other jobs as the expansion goes on, due to the nature of critical hit increasing both critical chance and critical damage. Current combat data shows that nearly 50% of Warrior's damage comes from guaranteed critical direct hits from Fellcleave, Inner Chaos, and the new Primal Rend skill, meaning that Warrior will continue to scale much harder than other jobs with increased critical hit available from higher item levels. That said, that increase in the number of jobs getting guaranteed critical hits from abilities, I would like to see Square Enix move the party crit buffs on Dragoon, Bard, and Scholar more towards increasing critical rating rather than flat percent chance. This would help keep the intended effect of increasing critical chance for the party, but also provide jobs like Warrior and Samurai more opportunities for skill expression within that window to maximize their output. This is the best time to be a Warrior main, and even the PvP iteration of Warrior feels satisfying as hell to play. Speaking of PvP, I'm currently collecting my thoughts on the Crystalline Conflict mode and the 6.1 PvP changes at large. If you liked the video, click the thumb and sub. Also check out the links below for Twitch, Twitter, and the community Discord.